Hello, world. Welcome to the Women of BSV. We are thrilled to have as our guest today Bitcoin discoverer, educator, builder, business maker, Joshua Henslee. You can follow him at Crypto Acorns on Twitter, as well as on his YouTube channel, Joshua Henslee. So, welcome to the conversation, Joshua.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Just start with what do you study at university? How did you get into computing? What's your background with programming? I'm interested in all that stuff because we don't know.
So I've been coding since sophomore year of high school, so 15. I took programming class, and the teacher, he was really interesting because the thing he said, I don't remember, but I mean, I saw him maybe 5 years ago or whatever, but he said one thing that stuck out, which is whenever you code, especially on the user side, assume that the users are stupid. And I think we see a lot of this in the
Yeah,
BSV
no,
space
that's
where
fair, I
people do
think.
stuff that folks don't expect. So that's something that I've had to deal with that in my career. But ever since that point, I've been coding. And in college, I did computer science and mathematics as my major. And once I graduated, I started working for a consulting firm, and we resold ERP software, and we would implement that for clients. So I did that for about 7 years. And then and my role was mainly technical. So, but I was like the lead. So my job was to be in front of the client. We would travel a lot and help them implement the system, their business software. But my role was, okay, I can explain these technical things to the client in a way that they can understand and make decisions about the project. So I did that for about 7 years, and then I went full-time BSV from November. Yeah, I guess it's 2 years now, from late October 2019.
It's quite a leap, isn't it, to throw yourself into it full time like that?
Yes.
Have you ever had any regrets about it, or
No? So I can say that I make probably less than a fifth of what I did, and I'm way happier.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and I don't regret it at
Self-employment.
all. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's been, even though it's full of drama and all this crazy stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it's way more fun and it's way more free.
Definitely. And it sounds like with your experience, your work experience, that's how you learned how to become an educator, because that's one thing I really appreciate about you is that you make these educational videos. And obviously you can lose me pretty quickly into a programming tutorial, to be fair. But I sometimes I go back and watch it twice and I'm like starting to kind of pick it up. By the end, you go pretty fast. You obviously have to pause the video a lot. But so it sounds like you were set up to be an educator by what you did in your job previously. If you were like the bridge between the company and the client.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't set out to do, I didn't think I would be doing a YouTube channel, but it just kind of happened. Like I decided to do one way back, and then it was received positively. So I decided to keep going.
Oh, we really appreciate it because you cover so many different topics as well, which I think is really great. I mean, I always feel like if we've ever got a question, about anything that's going on at the minute, you can go and ask Josh, because that's you're like a real font of knowledge.
Yeah. Use YouTube as the search engine that it is, and just put in Joshua and then whatever you're looking up, and make sure you keyword your videos real good for us.
Oh yeah.
So, and have you ever had any doubts about going into BSV as opposed to just Bitcoin generally?
No, because when I first started looking at crypto late 2017, of course, and I started with BTC, and I was on that for about 6 months. So I started with the core stuff, and then to altcoins and all that. So I've already tried it, and I know it doesn't work. So it's definitely no regrets.
And you've made a lot of different products that we all probably use on a fairly regular basis. And my favorite is your Windbell. I absolutely love that. But I do feel like maybe you haven't made enough of it, if you know what I mean. Like it could be a bit more promoted, built out, maybe. Do you leave projects and move on, or is it something you feel like you'll revisit and kind of build on later, or you seem to
Yeah,
have these ideas and just drop little bits of projects out?
yeah. So with that one, on my own, I fully intended to kind of pivot it and do stuff with it, but it keeps changing because,
Yeah.
I think the space is constantly in flux. And, frankly, right now, it's in a weird spot with development where we have lots of stuff kind of taken off, but there's still gaps in terms of integration. So, Handcash has their own thing, and then you have MetaID and the show stuff, and then you have the sensible stuff, and then you have Run, and you have Relay, but it's all still disconnected. So I've wanted to do very specific things with Windbell, but I don't want to use the word can't, but it's very difficult to mix them such that the user is not burdened. So that's why I haven't made any updates, which, is an excuse, but I'd rather wait and let this stuff kind
See
of
how it evolves.
right.
So
And
let's
then and the other thing is 99.9% of crypto is pump and dump, right? So users don't really want, some users do, but the majority don't want useful apps. They want to go get a quick pump,
make some money.
Yeah.
And get out. Yeah, no, true. But not here though. God. If that's what we're in it for, we're really fucked up, didn't we?
No way. Right. And Joshua, I wanted to jump in and relay back to your prior work experience. You mentioned the acronym ERP. And this is something that I feel very passionate about. I worked in sales with ERP, different ERP clients. So that, for anyone listening, is enterprise resource planning. So this is about the ways that companies use data and the way that they integrate their data systems to maximize efficiencies. So could you give us some background on why that is important, and also why BSV has that competitive or comparative advantage in the market overall, and why that's important to the long-term Bitcoin market?
Yeah, the companies are definitely interested in adopting crypto or not crypto, blockchain technology for the ERP stuff. But of course, the pitfalls they run into are Ethereum and all the fee issues and slowness. And then it's all based off the misconception that Bitcoin can't scale. The company I was with, they were heavy into trying to do stuff with ETH, and that was they had development teams working on that. But I don't know. I haven't followed up with my former coworkers to see if they got anywhere. My thoughts are probably not, right. But yeah, the thing is, I do think Bitcoin can help them, but it's just there's such a big disconnect right now between what is possible and what people think is possible. So in terms of accounting, it's huge, right? Because that's a big thing. That's a big issue with a lot of these companies. They might have Excel. They might be using Excel. Even if they're using ERP, they might still be using Excel as their financial ledger. Or worse, they might have certain projects that are on different spreadsheets and then some that are in the system. And it makes the reconciliation at the month end or whatever just horrible, right? Because there's no source of truth. Now, ironically, I know a big thing that's talked about in BSV is our government's going to adopt it because of the accountability. And a lot of folks, including me, have the position that no, they won't because it's so transparent. Well, the same thing applies to some companies, right? Some companies do, but some companies won't because they don't want everything to be clear because they might be doing some crazy stuff, right? That stuff aside, it is still a bit of it's going to happen, in my opinion. I just think we're very far from that because of that gap that I talked about. But yeah, if you were to push your financial stuff to the ledger, of course, privately, and you might encrypt it or something, but that would be huge, right? Because now instead of your database in some closet somewhere or on the cloud, you have one truth, and you can just month in get all your transactions and it's done. So that's something, to me, is inevitable.
And much needed as well. Especially as regulations get more and more, it's like it gets harder and harder to stay within the law, just by virtue of not knowing necessarily what the laws are. Yeah. No, that would be fabulous. But like, I feel like there's a big gap between where we are and what's possible at the minute. Like at the moment, I'm slightly frustrated that even the RelayX wallet doesn't have, my transactions in it. It's like, yeah, I know it's there on the blockchain, but I'd really like to be able to see it and export it.
Yeah, one example is after the CoinGeek London, I was still with the BA at the time, the Bitcoin Association, and we did kind of a private class to some people, and one person was there who had an accounting financial background, and we had them do transactions and like write data to the ledger, and he saw that, and he was just mind blown. He was like, "This is huge if we were able to do our transactions this way," because he understood the ease of the audit and the accountability. So from his side, he looks at that and sees much value, right? But the thing is, even if you have one person like that, if he goes back, I'm not going to say who he worked for, but if you were to go back to a company that knows nothing about this, they would treat him as like a heretic, right? Like it'd be like, what are you talking about, man? We're going with ETH, or we're not doing blockchain. We're not touching that blockchain crap at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's true. Because I think the reputation of blockchain has got really muddy, hasn't it, over the last 5 years as a sort of a source of scams, if nothing else. So yeah, it's got a lot of repair work to do on its image, I think, to get adopted and used. And that's so frustrating for us in BSV because we know all the ways in which it can be used, and nobody else seems to know or understand about that. Could we pivot a bit and talk about tokens for a bit? Because this is where I think your knowledge really shines at the minute. I've been looking at your morning run website recently because I minted some tokens for the Women of BSV last week, so I think that's pretty cool. But tell me what your opinion is about all the different token protocols, and is there one that is a front runner, is better? How do you think the war is going to play out, between these things? Give us your overview.
So I'm still positive towards Run. Just it's biased, really. I've been using it. It's been around for the longest, and I've used it a lot, and I know lots of apps that are built on it. So in terms of app adoption, it is the front runner still, even with the emergence of token swap. I think the issue is kind of the BSV market's understanding of all these token things. You can just look, I would say the one that people are most positive on are one that hasn't even done anything, which is STOS, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like STOS is not used at all in terms of the economy, but yeah, everyone talks about it. Meanwhile, you have Sensible, which is by far the most used, has the most volume, the most money. It still has issues though. Like the fees are really high now compared to other chains are low. It's 10 cents, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you could see that if a price goes up, we got 50 cent, $1 fees, which to me defeats the whole purpose of BSV.
And are the fees high because of the people who are operating the servers? What makes the fees high?
Their scripts are huge. They're really big, and that's why they've had some issues getting their transactions mined. It's a good thing that they're pushing the limits higher. But yeah, so I do think Sensible is the front runner, and their implementation is good because right now it scales better. But I've done a whole video on that, so I don't want to get too bogged down into the details. But as far as just fungible tokens, I think Sensible is the hot thing right now. And it'll probably stay that way until another protocol can catch up. But in terms of the ability to make apps and creativity, I think Run will still end up being the top because it's designed for that. In my opinion, the only token protocol that was designed for interactive objects, meaning like you can have a pet that has an item or a hero that equips an item, something like this. The only one that was designed with that type of stuff in mind at the protocol level was Run. I haven't seen that in any other token protocol. Now, that doesn't mean it's not possible. It just wasn't designed for it. So they're going to have a harder time implementing that kind of stuff. So naturally, I think programmers will just look, oh, okay, well, Run lets me do this stuff, so I'm just going to use that.
Mm-hmm. And what programming language do you use to program to Run?
That's JavaScript. So that's I think that's an area of criticism about it because it does restrict you to that. But on the other hand, it's the most popular programming
I was going
language
to say,
in the world.
most people know it, don't they? So that's really cool. Yeah. And Sensible Protocol, what programming language do they interface with?
So you could use multiple. I think they've written libraries in Go and JavaScript and some other
All
ones.
right. All right. I didn't know all this. And stars, that's actually using the Satoshis themselves, right, as tokens?
Supposedly, it's just, I mean, it's private, right? So like, there's no docs or white paper.
Oh, right.
No, not publicly. I think you have to talk to them to get it. But to me, that's basically saying I don't want my thing adopted, right? Because
Yeah.
you know, if Sensible stocks are open and Run is open, if you're a developer, why would you make the leapfrog of getting on the phone? I mean, this isn't 1992, right? Like, I'm gonna go on the internet, I'm gonna search. You know, I see the docs and I start coding. That's the whole. To me, that's the whole point of Bitcoin. To gateway a protocol behind like a sales call is just silly to me. Yeah, like because it's an open ledger anyway, right? So if someone can just look at the transactions, they can just implement it. If someone figures it out, they can just publish the docs, and you see what I mean? Like, so it's just, yeah.
It's just a hurdle to adoption.
Yeah.
Nothing more, right? Yeah, no, I see that. And so what would you say is the most exciting thing happening in the space at the minute? Do you think it's tokens or something else?
I do think it's tokens just because that's where all the money is right now. I mean, you can just look at the volumes on Token Swap. You can see how much money is locked in. That's a good thing about BSV is it's not fake like the other chains where you look and see the exchange volume and we don't know if that's real. It's low on BSV, but at least you know it's legitimate because you can see that money flowing on chain. So I think, yes, it's tokens simply because that's where the money flows right now.
And there's all the different ways to use tokens. So like you say, there's the sort of DeFi aspect to it, and then there's the in-game tokens, and then there's the NFTs. Do you think that one of these uses is going to be significantly more popular than the others? Do you think it's DeFi just because it's a way of making money?
I think in the short term, the DeFi stuff, simply because, that's where profits can be made. But in terms of value, I think it's going to be the games and the NFT stuff. I feel like that's the avenue that gets folks that will get outsiders into BSV.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say people don't know we minted the first token as well, didn't you? Which was a sure token.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
your token, isn't it? Do that, you do it on Moneybot? Did you do it on Moneybot and then over to Protocol? So, like, I remember hearing that you might have an idea of what you want to do with it in the future, but you're not going to say anything. So is that still the same thing?
So so many people have asked me, I just ignore it every time. But of course, you guys are asking me directly. The same answer is when I launched it, it was kind of just a flash in the pan type thing. And it's from the beginning, I said no promises, none of that stuff. So, I'm not setting any expectations about that at all.
But you might hook it in something later
It's a history in the making as well, because you were the first ever person to do that on the BSV blockchain. So that's a really good thing. Also, I know that you're on there quite a lot, aren't you? And you've praised the app quite a bit. And also, I'm sure I saw a tutorial of you making little robots.
Oh, was that the Sensible stuff?
Which app?
Yeah.
Was that?
Is it ShowPay?
ShowPay.
Oh, yeah.
Show app. On your YouTube channel as well, with some tutorials where you're explaining how to make the little robots. So they're the NFTs, and there's an NFT gallery on there as well. So I think I've seen in your Twitter, you're a little robot, aren't you, in your Twitter profile?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So those are the
so what was it? Yeah, what's the robot all about? Because I remember seeing them everywhere for a short while as well. So can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, BetaBots, they were released by ShowPay team, which is a Chinese community and project. But they launched these 1,000 MetaBots. They randomly generated them all. and they sold them as NFTs on their marketplace. They're actually doing the Sensible protocol, but they did it 1 to 200 per day over a course of like 6 or 7 days. They sold out within 5 minutes each day. And at the end, they ended up making around 2,000 BSV, I think, something like that.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
And the secondary market is kind of cooled off, but I think the initial price was 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, then 1. And then they did an auction for the last 15. The last one went as high as 130 BSV.
That's
and,
mad. And are they like procedurally created or something?
They were initially, yeah. The initial generation was, yeah. The last thing they did was added the ability to fuse the first two to make a child. It would take the attributes. The attributes are on chain, so it takes them and randomly generates a child metabot for it.
I must say, like the ShowPay app, there's a lot on it. I mean, I'm still but I am learning off you, to be fair, and I'm so grateful for your videos. But there's so much on it, but I'm still kind of trying to get my way around it because I make it pay up, and also it is. I'm assuming it's a Chinese or Singapore or Japanese, because it's definitely not an American app.
Yeah, it's Chinese, so I think that turns folks away because you have to toggle to go to English or whatever. And then for the most part, it's translated, but obviously it's going to be a little rough, right? The direct ones it'll be kind of tough to figure out what's going on. But in terms of using it, just using the app, all that's pretty solid. I don't have problems with that, but I can see why users would be turned away from it.
Well, I was just going to say, because myself, I'm Rory amateur longer than I did, but when I was there, I was obsessed with playing 2048, and I noticed that it's actually on ShowPay app, and so I became a bit obsessed with 2048 again, and then I looked, and then I'd got some money in my wallet, some MC coins, with meta coins from actually playing the game, and I was like, wow, okay, what's next? In any way whatsoever. So I thought that was actually a really good point for drawing people in, to be fair.
Yeah, definitely. I wish more people would use it, because I think that's kind of the experience people have been looking for on Bitcoin.
Could you explain to me why people kept uploading the same JPEG? What was that doing? What function was that serving?
So they created this token called Metacoin, which they distribute 500,000 every day, and it's prorated based off how much data you upload to the chain per day.
Right. Oh, I see.
I see. It's prorated, right? So that means the more you do, but if you want a bigger chunk, right? Because if your percentage increase, you get more coins. Yeah. And for a really long time, not anymore. There was a big arbitrage between the actual price and how much it costs to upload data to the chain. So this is something I've written about before. Everyone was making fun of, it's just dog coin, blah, 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 blah. Well, frankly, those folks while they're complaining, they're not making money, right? Because all those people that did it, they made money.
And they made money purely because lots of other people were doing the same thing.
Well, because the price of the coin, because people were speculating, the price of the coin was significantly higher than the mining cost. So
I see.
So you could pay a few coins to mine and like 2x, 3x your returns in a day.
And is that essentially kind of what DeFi is?
It's a little different because the issuance is based off like data you upload. So the DeFi part is the token, like the way you sold and bought was through token swap, but you weren't buying, you were earning, and then you were selling. So it enabled the sale of it, but the actual economics don't have anything to do with DeFi.
Right.
It's like you're getting rewarded for your time that you're actually using the app for. That's what it is. So, for example, if you're on your phone for 15 hours a day, okay, you get nothing. Yeah, you just get an addiction to the phone. But if you're on ShowPay and you've been on there for an hour and a half or something, you get that payback time is kind of rewarded for actually being on the app for. And I think that's I think that's wonderful.
Well, I don't know, but is it dangerous? I mean, you know how addictive social media is already. Are we going to addict people and then pay them as well? I mean,
Yes,
is that like a bit of a
double-edged.
downward spiral that we don't really want to encourage?
I think it's a double-edged sword, right? At the end of the day, it's a tool. You know, people can use it for both sides.
Well, exactly. Yeah, especially if you found a really, really good use for it.
Now, Joshua, I remember watching your recent live stream, and you had brought up about reading the Lightning Network white paper and how you had a kind of a revelation after reading it. So could you tell us about that experience and then what led you to BCH and then BSV?
Yeah. So during summer 2018, the trigger for me to go from or at least to start looking at BCH was Roger. I saw an interview with Ivan on Tech and Roger Ver, and they were just this was back when BCH was actually hated. Now no one cares about it, but back then, you know, it was attacked like BSV is. And Roger, instead of Craig, it was Roger that was getting all the hate and stuff. So I just wonder, okay, why do they dislike this guy so much? And then I just listened to him, and I'm like, well, he makes sense, you know. This stuff just makes sense. And so, but it took me about 3 months to really be convinced about BCH. But that was a trigger to look into it, and then doing the research, which of course was difficult because, you know, the Reddits are just, I mean, it's just garbage, right? It's just so much engineering and, you know.
Smack talk.
Yeah. But the final straw to push me from BTC to BCH was I read the Lightning white paper. I was on a plane ride home from work, and I read it, and I was just like, this is never gonna work ever. Because the funny, you know, folks talk about, people make fun of Craig and talking about his degrees and stuff. Now, you know, college, I feel like is good. It just depends, right, on how you use it. And, you know, people think, oh, well, just because you got a degree doesn't mean you know what you're talking about. But at a certain level, you do learn some stuff, right? And some of this stuff is just base. And it's very apparent that these guys don't understand like base computer science stuff. And if they did, they wouldn't make these things. Now, I understand why they would do it if it's a token, right? Because get rich quick. But for something like Lightning, it's just, you guys are just, I don't know what you're thinking, because this is not going to, I mean, we know it doesn't work, right? It's been how many years, right?
Years and years.
Amply demonstrated now. Yeah. I think it's funny that it makes you laugh, though, how bad it is. That's pretty funny.
2 years ago, around this time, I was at the Litecoin conference in Vegas. I had been invited to work at the Hodlit booth with Bitcoin Ben, and Dick Algeier was there, and Bix Weir, and I had just liquidated pretty much everything I had into BSV. So I was already like hip to, you know, some of the backstory stuff when I went, but I was like, let me just go and see this opportunity still through. And my intuition, you know, I'm not a tech guru by any means, but my intuition, just listening to the presentations on Wimble and all the different things of these people on stage, was like, get out of here. Just get out of here. This is ridiculous. These people are fools. I mean, it just like, that's intuition. You know.
No, I think when you start seeing Max Kaiser dancing around, shouting. I mean, I used to be quite a fan of Max Kaiser, but like he's, you know, you can tell he's just talking.
I met him the first time at the Nexus Earth conference, and Roger Ver was there, and same thing. But I didn't know. I knew there was something still to pursue in this space. So really happy that I was led to, you know, BSV after those few events, or, you know, whatnot. But
yes, me too. Now, on that Wimble, I went to that Atlanta blockchain here in Atlanta. We had the Bitcoin Embassy and Tab, and I would go to some of their meetups, and they had a presentation on Wimble. And after the presentation, I said to some of the guys I knew there, I said, I think that's a prank. You're being pranked.
That's
Don't
not
you
my
see?
No, no, I mean,
This
just
is
the
a
name
prank.
alone is pretty ridiculous. Yeah.
And I left and I never went back. And I mean, I met really
Yeah.
nice people there. But I just think they're, the common thing that they'll say is, oh, well, we let the market decide. And I think, well, you're
No.
not even aware of what the market is.
Mhm.
So I think that's their slow pace. But I've been really thinking about this a lot, and that with communication, with trying to inform people, uh, never give up and understand that it might not happen overnight, but be persistent over the long run, and things will work out. The truth will emerge. So that's my attitude lately: is don't look for immediate results, but just be persistent and carry on.
Yeah, for sure. Can we talk about the court case maybe?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on how all that's going? Do you think it's going to be mixed, or a good result, or a bad result?
So from before, I still think Craig will win. What I'm unsure about is how the market's going to react.
Yeah.
I think we're getting kind of a weird view into what that could look like based off today. Because this morning, for some reason, the BSV hash rate, it's almost tripled now,
Oh
but the
yeah,
price
that's
has
weird.
not gone up. And I have never seen that before. Usually that the only time that happens is because the price goes up and then they come. This time they're coming, but like they're mining at a huge loss. And that's just really weird.
Weird.
Yeah. So
Well, what are the potential reasons? Let's go through the scenarios. Is somebody trying to save some BSV in case the market moves, or are they trying to save some BSV to dump the market? Do you think was?
yeah, I did write about it. I got an article real quick about it this morning, and there were three conclusions that I think that are possible. I think one that it seems likely, but I think it's not, is that yeah, they're buying it without buying it. Right, they can get it without actually acting in the market. But the thing is, at the time I wrote it, which was a couple hours ago, they had only mined 60 blocks, which was almost 400 coins, which that's not really that much. I mean,
No.
to an individual that is, but to a miner that's not. So that's one thing. So, but that same argument applies to the dump narrative, right? Because that's both ways. You can't really control the market with only 400 coins. You can't do anything. You see what I mean?
Or 4,000 even. Yeah.
Yeah. So now it is thinly traded. So there's that part. The other was, okay, maybe it's another attack, right? But they weren't mining empty blocks, and they weren't doing anything with reorg. So they were actually putting transactions in, but they weren't putting the more complex ones, like the big ones or the big scripts. But I think that's just because of the limits. They're used to mining BCH and BTC, so they just didn't change it, and they're just mining default, right? But I don't think that makes sense either, because if you were going to attack, it'd be like, if you're going to go attack somebody, you're not going to attack them with your one hand behind your back, right? You're going to go full in and try to do as much damage as possible. But they're not doing that, so I don't think it's an attack. The third one, which is interesting, is because all the exchanges that support BSV require high deposit times, like 100, 150 blocks. They are basically speeding time up for themselves so that they can make a deposit. And then maybe they're front running, thinking, okay, it's going to pump. I'm going to make sure I get my coins onto an exchange. But then
so that I can sell off
theirs.
when it pumps.
Once the hash rate drops, the blocks will be really slow. So, 144 blocks is a day. Once that hash rate, if it's tripled by now, once you lower that, it's going to take 3 days to get to 144 blocks. So now, instead of people waiting 1 day to get their BSV on exchange, it'll take them 3. Whereas these guys are able to get theirs on very quickly. Now, this is conjecture, right? We don't know what's actually happening. But I'm just trying to think logically about why they would do this, because this isn't cheap to just triple the hash rate without any justification. It's obvious that they're speculating on something, right? So I think this to me, this is more substantial than anything that's gone on in court.
No, I agree with you. I agree. I think once you see the behavior changing of the miners, that's with evidence that the market is starting to change its mind in some way.
And I think it's noteworthy that the rate, I think as of now, it's higher than BCH, which, I mean, the miners are mining that rate at $600 a coin, yet they're doing the same computing power on BSV and it's only 170.
And this is why it's really advantageous to follow at Crypto Acorns on Twitter, because you get this finger on the pulse and this, live wire of what is going on in the moment. I was thinking earlier today, Joshua Henslee is like the Bloomberg terminal
Yeah, definitely.
of the Bitcoin news.
And you write some of the best Coin Geek articles as well. I always read them when you publish them. So yeah, I mean, we don't necessarily understand every word you say, Josh.
Right.
We listen.
We take notes. And isn't it a good thing for the price to remain stable? Isn't that a good thing for companies that are building?
I think if there was actual activity happening, yes. But given that all the apps that are on BSV, most of all the apps, it's about it's either gambling, DeFi, social media, or token trading. So in that case, you want all those apps really want the price higher. Even something like Crypto Fights, which is closest to usage, they still have in-game items where you trade based off the price of the item. So, the price doesn't really affect them too much. But I don't think that what I'm saying is the nature of the apps. They either don't care or they want the price higher.
Ah, okay.
And do you think that the price is being suppressed in BSV, or do you think it's just not being pumped?
I think it's both. So I'm still skeptical on the whole suppression thing. Now there is evidence of it that Bitfinex is doing it, with the shorts or whatever, and that's plausible, right? Because there's lack of liquidity. But I think the bigger reason is just the lack of apps and demand for it. I think it's both. It's both that have created this situation.
But then, pumps are so artificial anyway that I think in a sense we don't really want them anyway because they're false promises basically. But nonetheless, I mean, it has been quite painful to be in BSV for the last 2 years. Let's be honest. Do you think that there's any hope that a positive outcome of this trial might be either increased coverage by the media or just increased interest, or that people are going to start coming to accept some sort of primary facts about Craig's involvement in creation of Bitcoin?
Yeah, that's my hope at all this, because we don't know what the outcome will be, but I think one that is close to certain is that more eyes, and it should get some more objective people, because that's one of the issues in crypto is because of that assumption about Bitcoin. And then you see, I mean, this, like I said, this treatment of any version of Bitcoin trying to scale, has been treated like the what's the word, like the adopted kid
really?
brother.
Yeah.
So but if you get more objective people who are outside the space, which culturally, right, what we're seeing around the world is because people are able to take advantage of some of this stuff going on with whether it's DeFi or Wall Street bets or the crazy clown stock market, because people are able to easily get in and out of these things via Robinhood or some of these other apps or MetaMask, whatever. I think that's the next people who might take a look, because they're not going to know. They don't know all this weird history stuff. They just see something that they can pump. So they might get in or take a look and they say, oh, wait, hold on. You mean the person who created Bitcoin says that this is it? Oh, so what is it? Okay, I'm going to go in this thing. So that's kind of a hope of mine. And, I think that's more viable because that should fascinate people, right? I mean, this whole story is just crazy. So
I
even from a
know.
pure drama perspective, that should
It
entice
gets
people
crazier
to take a
every
look.
month. I
Yeah.
think it's like, you know, it gets more in intrigue and mystery the deeper you get into it. It is mad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to make a fantastic film, or dare I say film, probably more like a series, actually, you know, because it's so much of it.
And then
But
I think someone else reminded me that I was talking with the other day, reminded me that people outside of crypto don't even know BSV exists.
no, they really don't.
If they come in contact with me, they do. No, I'm kidding.
Well, that's true. That's true. But like, you know, we can't spread ourselves that thinly.
Yeah.
I mean, thank goodness for Kurt Jr. He's doing a really good job, I think, of raising awareness. He's so, you know, slick and professional, and you know, great at interviews that he's really getting us out there. But I mean, have you got any feeling, Joshua, for what we could do to raise our profile generally? I think the court case is actually a really great opportunity. But outside of that, you know, where do we need to be pushing towards to, you know, making the biggest impact?
Yeah, I think at this point, two things I can think of are more grassroots, which obviously is difficult given all the stuff in the world. But I think that's getting better overall. So I think that's one, because at this point, there's no need, like telling is not going to work, but showing is going to do it. So I could give a story of when I showed my wife, like, because she got fed up with me talking about Bitcoin. But I remember I was traveling for work. I was in a hotel room, and this was before the BCH BSV split, and I think she got FOMO because it was about to split, and she didn't know what was going to happen with the price. And she just called. She's like, "How can I buy BCH? How can I buy?" Because this is right before the split, because she knew she would get the split coins, right? So, and so I walked her through the Coinbase thing, and I ended up having to do it. I ended up having to buy it, and then I had download Handcash, and this is in 2018, and I'll send it to you. And I did it when I was on the phone, and when I sent it to her, she just was like, "Oh," she was like, "Wow!" She just, so that was it. That's
because it was
what I did
instant.
to her. It was
Yeah.
nothing that I said up to that point, nothing that I did doing that. That was it. Because she's from Japan, and she had issues getting her money from Japan to the US through the banking system. So she sees this and she's like, "Oh, I mean, this is just a solution right here."
Yeah, no, I remember actually. I sent money myself to Japan back when it was Mt. Gox to buy my first Bitcoin. And I remember what a pain in the ass that was. Oh my God. And I think I probably paid 10% of it in fees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The funny thing with that is all the core and all the rest of the people want us to keep doing that, right? With gas fees, Coinbase fees, Binance fees. They want us to keep doing the same thing, which defeats the whole purpose.
Right. And I think that's part of the problem at the minute, especially in America, actually. You've got the toughest regulation in the world, haven't you? And it's probably the least crypto-friendly regulation of anywhere at the minute, I would say. Potentially getting worse, maybe, you know, if they start trying to tax on unrealized capital gains or whatever is the next thing. What do you think?
I saw Ian Gregg's tweet.
Regulation here is not as they're struggling hard. I mean, the fact that, let's just put it like this: the fact that you have Shiba Inu going crazy that just shows you the government's ability to regulate, right? Because they want to protect the investor, but they can't protect the investor from buying this second dog
coin. Yeah.
So
no, that's true.
By the time they shut down, say, like, I think what they're going after right now is what? Tether. Let's say they go after Tether, right? Which they still haven't done anything. But it's like whack-a-mole. They're going to pop down Tether, and then it's like, okay, you got USDC, BUSD, True USD, right?
Yeah.
And then, okay, I'm going to shut down Uniswap. Well, there's still Pancake Swap and Sushi Swap, and then Token Swap. So it's like, you're going to shut them all down? It's just, I don't think they'll ever be able to catch up.
Good. Well, I mean, that's hopeful in a way, but it depends how you look at it, doesn't it? Because if you think it's a scam, then not hopeful. But yeah, I mean, is that how you feel about it at the minute? Then better to just sort of keep pushing forward and keep developing the technology, and, you know, wait until somebody tells you to stop.
Yeah, because the other way we know it's not going to work. Because the other way is basically saying, all right, sit at home, do research on law, and not build anything, and that's not going to attract any customers. So yeah, especially on BSV, there's no way there's going to be any type of crackdown because, like we just said, no one knows about it. Now, Uniswap has made themselves a target, so maybe they'll get it. But if we just look at precedent, I mean, if you do anything with this, you just pay a tiny fine and then move on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not advocating that these things happen, but the reality is it's going to. I mean, we've already seen scams on BSV, and that's going to continue.
Do you think there's anything out of, the ripple effects of the coins that Craig keeps talking about with this court case being moved that could change that whole trajectory, or like some new laws being able to be enforced faster or something from the judgments of this case? Or
if Craig, I mean, well, yeah, let's just assume that he's successful in getting a court order to move coins or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That would have significant impact on the whole industry for sure.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I was hoping was being set up with this court case. Like, that's my...
Well, I think Max Kaiser would have a heart attack for a start.
He'd find another job. He's very charming. Don't worry.
Go into mental breakdown.
Yeah.
He would just say, "Oh, I was talking about BSV the whole time."
Yeah.
I know. Him and Stacy, they are very cute. But I think Ray had something to say, didn't you?
We were talking earlier about how people don't know about BSV. So whenever I go to a convention, I will help people sign up for Handcash. And Jay and I did that in the summer for like a food truck festival. And we were really surprised, like the amount of people that, they never heard of BSV. They kept asking if it was Bitcoin. But they were very willing to sign up and try it out. So I think that's like one of the best ways is to know, in person, is to just bring it up.
Yeah, and Handcash makes it so easy to onboard people. That's going to be a really good tool for all of us for conversation starter and all that, like with your Uber driver or something. Can I tip you in, BSV with your Handcash wallet? And people are really accustomed to like, oh, download this app, So I think
that's true.
easy.
That's not such a weird thing anymore, is it? Yeah. Having said that, though, I just don't go anywhere anymore. I think I used to introduce people to or annoy people with Bitcoin more, 5 years ago than I do now, because I barely leave the house. So I feel like my lifestyle is not conducive to persuading people in real life. But hopefully we can persuade them on the internet, if not in person. So what would you like to see, Josh, for Bitcoin SV? What improvements, what desperately needs to happen, do you think, at the moment? What's the kind of the biggest thing that's holding us back?
I do think that because of like all the stuff that's happened, where BTC 60K and ETH is almost 5K, and clearly it's lagging. BSV's lagging in terms of development. Normally I wouldn't feel this way, but I do think the price needs to go up, because even though that's going to cause some degeneracy, I mean, that's just going to happen. The morale will be boosted and there'll be more capital, which means the people that have it will be able to do more stuff. Now, yes, some people are going to go buy houses and Lambos and all this weird stuff, but others are going to take it and invest. And we need that. We need that really badly. I said, normally, I would think, okay, it's apps, but it's like chicken and egg, right? Like no one can really build apps that can attract people if they don't have money. So
Exactly.
No, it's a fair point, because I mean you can only get so far. I think a lot of us suffer with the problem of being too heavy on one set of skills rather than the other, and we should perhaps do a bit more cross-pollination of our skill sets. Is something that occurs to me sometimes.
So Greg Ward and I and Diddy are building this Link BSV, which is like an alternative to Linktree on the blockchain. And there's some investment money available, but they want a financial forecast. So I've been like trying to figure out how to put down like all the potential earnings of this platform into a financial forecast to turn in. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to build. If B had BSV had done anything yet, I could have already gotten the developer to keep going because, you know, but
No, yeah, it's definitely
that's definitely what I'm trying to do is, you know, look for all the needs that I feel like there's issues with in the legacy systems and make them better on the BSV blockchain somehow. We need that really bad too. Peaceful resistance to all that stuff. So,
and I think we need apps that compete with the apps that you're seeing on other chains as well. Is it called OpenSea, the NFT gallery? I mean, that it looks really nice. You know, it's really slick. I mean, obviously the fees are probably horrendous and all the rest of it. But you know, there's a sort of certain level of usability that I don't think we're necessarily achieving all the time at the moment in BSV. And I think it is partly to do with the fact that there's not as much money sloshing around. So, you know, that would help a lot. But it's a bit of a chicken and egg, isn't it? Because we have so much potential to disrupt the whole market. We're being massively suppressed. And I mean, even the court case, like nobody's talking about it. Isn't that bizarre? And then I think that's happening a lot with a lot of things at the moment, culturally, that, you know, if there's a lobby that wants to suppress something, they're really, really successful at suppressing it.
Well, if the regulators weren't in bed with the media and the people that own the media, then they would be going to the media for more help to clean this stuff up too. So retail investors weren't getting so screwed. So it's very obvious if you know how to look at the big picture, what's happening.
But
it's a liquidity grab, you know, it's like global Ponzi scheme.
They will, though. What I'm starting to see is the crypto ones are starting to cover when there's negative stuff that comes out about Craig this past week. Like they weren't saying anything at the beginning, but whenever it's something that, because I saw something that's like, they talked about his side, their strategy to just lie, slander, and, you know, what's the word, like make people think of Craig like as a fraud, just more slander against his character, which they've been doing that for 5 years, right? So and they're gonna keep doing that. So that's when CoinDesk is like, this is Ira's climbing side strategy, but they don't. Of course, they're not gonna say anything about the other side.
Yeah, that's right. So it's all more negative.
I think what could be a trigger though is if they haven't really gotten to any of the crazy evidence. I think if that stuff gets out and that gets more, you know, normally I would never say this, objective media, if they look at some of this stuff and see, okay, if you get like someone who is more neutral, like Bloomberg, that says this piece of evidence, and then people read that could be a trigger, right? And I think that's kind of, at this point, they're basically holding it down to prevent that from happening, but it's going to come out.
Well, I'm pretty sure I heard on Raf's interview, the crypto vigilante, Raphael, with Kurt recently, he explained the ties that CoinDesk has to MasterCard. So that's not surprising that they're doing that at all.
That's the thing. The funding all comes from a fairly central point. So.
And then the one fact I didn't know is that Ira is not going to gain anything if because he already sold the rights to, you know, whoever it is. So clearly someone was interested enough to pay him off to take the burden of this case. And it would be interesting to see when that happened, because if that happened in 2018, it's not like BTC was 60K back then, right? So that means they were willing to do it when the price was way lower, which probably means that they didn't do it for financial gain. They did it for political reasons.
Suppression. Yeah. There's so much more here than we know, I'm sure.
We can be grateful that we have sincere people, all hands on deck already. And I always think of the poem, nothing in the world takes the place of persistence. So even though it might seem insurmountable, we are the summit reachers for sure. So let's go, team! All hands together! Woo, BSV!
Yes.
That's right. And again, there's nothing like authenticity. So as we persevere, now, even Joshua, when you mentioned that your wife said, "Oh my gosh, stop talking about Bitcoin." Again, even though it was in the seeing of it working that really made her realize, all of those times you brought it up, it did have an impact. It's
Mm,
almost like the water was rising and rising, and then there was a flood.
Yeah.
And so I think that is the same for all of us. We keep persevering. We keep sending out word to our friends and family, social media networks, and that has a great impact. It's the power of the people, the person to person, that will overcome any kind of obstacle.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
agree. I agree.
Cheers to that.
The ripple
Yes.
effects of everything we're doing, and I think the people who are in BSV are hardcore people as well. I think we're really got backbones,
That's
and that
nice.
matters.
Yeah,
It's true.
when I onboard people to these platforms, I'm always saying, this is some of the smartest people in the world that have already figured this out and already found their way to this ecosystem and have been really paying attention to know what's happening here. That's very rare.
So, Josh, just to finish off, because we're almost coming up to an hour, what's your favorite business or app or company in the space at the minute? What really excites you?
I still think from right now, which could, is so fluid, it could change in a week. But right now, it's still the show stuff with the metabots. I think that's because to me, that is the closest implementation to really the way I think people foresaw when Craig did his MetaNet presentation 3 years ago. And to me, now I don't know that that's going to be the one that does it, but that's something that's being strived for sure. And I think we see validation of this with Facebook doing a complete pivot to their, changing their company name because they see what's going to happen. So they're trying to get in front of it now. But that's the way. It's like, when you have one identity that's tied to all these different apps and you go in and out, but Facebook's never going to let you own it. But they see the path that they need to take. But it's something like that where you can go in and out. You have the same avatar. You don't log in again, and it's all integrated.
Really powerful. Don't you think Handcash is on a similar track, though? I mean, they might not be as big a universe yet, but
they are. But the I don't want to say the problem. It's more of a ideological thing. Is they will not. They don't intend on having the same type of support for different stuff you can do. So, for example, they're gonna have the Duro dogs come out, and that's more of an exclusive type thing. But they're not going to support generally tokens or NFTs in such a way to where it's seamless between apps. Now, a developer could still build that, but it's going to take a lot more work because they kind of have to circumvent the system to do it. Versus it all just be integrated with Handcash. And I think that's fine because their approach is to get more external type people in, not necessarily power users. But whereas the show stuff, they still don't have the tools yet, but they're working on it. They want people to build these types of apps, and they have all these APIs, and they intend on fully supporting it. So it's we'll see how.
So it's a bit like a walled garden idea versus a more capitalist sort of approach of all comers, just sitting at the table. So, but it is quite a Chinese sort of mindset, isn't it? To centrally plan a bit, provide all the APIs, like you say, build the tools, and then everybody's building to the same set of instructions, which is great for the end user. I don't get me wrong, but
in the history of software development, there has been more diversity where people try different protocols and then eventually one wins out that I've read.
Integration is fantastic for the user, but for the companies, maybe not so much. I don't know, because there's a winner.
Right.
So fascinating conversation, Josh. Thank you for coming on. We really, really appreciate having you on. We've been quite excited to talk to you. So that's wonderful. Rory, do you want to wrap it all up for us?
Yes, please. Joshua, we'll continue to watch your live streams and follow you. We hope you can come on back soon and maybe have a little debate with Satoshi. Would
We're
that be
trying to
all
get
right?
everybody to debate it now.
Yes, we'd love it. We'd love it to have your expertise so that we can see the diversity of ideas in the BSV ecosystem. So, would that be possible maybe in the new year?
I have what I call it, a policy. It's called the S fight avoidance policy, where I just I will not engage with folks online. I can't. It's just
Okay, fair enough.
We have to leave that to Kurt. I think he's up for it.
Oh,
yeah.
all right, fair enough. Well,
Yeah.
Joshua, you have your finger on the pulse of Bitcoin. We look to you for the news daily, and we are delighted that you joined us today. So thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
for
Josh.
having me.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
I'm going to hit end. Bye now.